Ladies and gentlemen, independent Americans around the country and around the globe, happy Passover, happy Easter, happy March Madness, happy legalization of cannabis in New York, and happy spring break. We have a refreshing breeze and dose of some really fun and interesting content, conversation, energy. And I am very happy to bring to our spring break special episode the great and powerful Rick Sorkin and Sharon Koppelman, hosts of the exciting podcast Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast, powered by Righteous Media, coming next week, April 7th. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hi, Paul.
Thanks, man.
Happy spring.
Happy spring. Happy everything. There's a lot going on, lots to get into. I'm very excited to introduce you all to the Independent Americans audience and to the Righteous Media world. We're going to talk about your new show. We're going to talk about what y'all have been up to. We're going to talk maybe about a couple things in the news, but I want to start off by welcoming you and also asking you a question I ask of all of our guests. How are you and where are you?
I'm fine. We're fine. We're so far so good. We are in California in a spot where it's quite warm, hiding out,
Laying low.
Well, laying low in the desert. So we're doing our best, and we've been potted, the four of us, since March of
2011.
So the four of you are who, and maybe potted, and it's a perfect term. I am newly introduced to this. Share, please, who are the four of you, and what does potted mean? Because I think it's really kind of a foundational element of at least this phase of your show.
Well, he's my son.
That's my mom. And we're here with your husband, my stepfather, and my girlfriend, and Zephyr the cat. And the five of us, depending on how you count, are laying low in the desert. And we got out of the Los Angeles area many months ago, and potting in the sense that these are the people that we've seen for months. And we're safe and sound in a clandestine, very, very low key place. And so it's fun to pretend. It's fun not to tell people exactly where we are, but also like no one kind of knows where we are, which is also kind of fun.
It's advantageous. I have been now broadcasting from an undisclosed location for a full year.
Wow.
Which is both a matter of mental health and operational security.
Right.
but we're going to pull out so many things about your show that I think people are really going to enjoy. But as we go into this, it's this fragile time in America where it feels like we're making progress on the pandemic, but we got this huge warning from the CDC director about don't let up. And I want to ask you all, part of why I think this show is going to be fascinating. You all have been like doing this hardcore, right? Relative to most, I think when you say potted, you've been very vigilant. You've been very careful. Can you share a little bit more about what that's like? Because, potting with your mom and your girlfriend and your stepdad and the cat might be a little unusual. It's definitely going to be interesting.
I appreciate that. And just to go back one question, I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Rick.
We did what we felt was the safest, soundest, most reasonable, cautious thing based on all the information we had in front of us, and also being fully aware of the types of people that we're surrounded by every day, all day. So it was kind of like, let's do what I had the initial idea in last summer that said I think it'd be a good idea not to be in a major city from around, I don't know, middle of October of 2020 to say, I don't know, end of January 2021. And we made it manifested it. And then we made appropriate moves. And it wasn't until weeks and months into it, and especially now that we're in the springtime, that the level of guard is probably, in terms of calibration, higher than most people that we know. We're not, Howard Hughesing over here. You can see our fingernails are normal length. I've become a master salon person. I've given everyone in this house haircuts multiple times. We've learned incredible skills. But yes, we have essentially, each of us have only seen like a pharmacist or a doctor in the situation that is necessary. I've not been inside of a place for, I celebrated, my girlfriend and I celebrated a full year of sort of self-quarantine, laying low on March 8th. So we're a little early in the process. So we're talking, this isn't like Clive and Bundy land, but we are not going out. We are making food. We are, there's puzzles and internet
So
and
just
masterclass.
so some folks, everybody's pandemicking differently, right?
Sure.
But when was the last time either or both of you were inside of a restaurant?
That would have been on the like 4th or 5th of March, 2020. We were outside at a spot in Santa Monica, and last time I was inside a restaurant was the end of February 2020.
It's funny now that you ask, I remember the restaurant and I remember who was there.
Yeah.
And it was March of 2020.
Yeah.
And someone dear and near to my husband and me came in from Philadelphia and came in, and he went to give me a hug, and I backed up. And he said, "I'm giving you a hug." And he gave me a hug, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. It was crazy.
It's fascinating to look back on that now, right? I mean, I remember those last lunches, those last meetings, the last shows we did. I think Chris Russell, the Navy SEAL strategist, was the last guy I interviewed in person. And I remember saying, this might be the last one for a while. And so there was such an interesting and even awkward time where some folks were saying, screw it, I'm still doing handshakes. And others are like, I'm going to the mountains, right? And now we reflect on, but I think all of this is part of why your show is going to be so fascinating. There's so many different threads we want to pull out of this, but I also want to give folks a little bit more of a chance to get to know you. So it still is Independent Americans. And I want to ask, I've never interviewed a couple before, two people at the same time. So this is all a great independent media content experiment. But I want to ask both of you, when you were growing up, what was your first car?
Oh, okay. So my first car was a Plymouth Valiant.
Wow. What year and what color, Sharon?
I don't know what year it was. I think it might have been red. And I was a 20-year-old newlywed at the time. And we bought it from my brother's friend for $200.
Wow.
And at about 6 months later, the car stopped running, and we took it to the shop, and they said that, when did you change the oil last? And I said, what? Who knew from oil? I was hitchhiking to Temple University. I didn't know from oil.
Wow.
Oh, my brother's going to hear this, and he's going to be so embarrassed. And I didn't know what to do. So we kept driving the car. And when it stopped another 6 months later and we had somebody tow it away, I said, I don't understand why it started working again. And they said, we looked under the hood. It's so gunky under there. We think it's sealed itself.
Wow. Can I ask you, Sharon, what color, how would you describe the red? Was it a temple red, a darker red, or was it a brighter red, more like the psychedelic shirt that your son is wearing to your right?
This red.
That was 1973. I'm not sure. I want to say a dark red, but my brother did send me a picture recently because, I'm not sure. So you're going to,
well, everybody
have one?
We're going to have we have a website for this show. So there'll be places for extra content.
Cool.
You can find out more about Sharon and maybe see the picture of this Valiant and other things. And for folks who are listening and want to see video, this will be up on independentamericans.us on the Righteous Media YouTube channel. It'll probably be up on the Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast website as well. And you will be able to see that Sharon is wearing a black shirt, like very New York black, professional, casual. It does everything, right? And then Rick, in contrast, has a psychedelic reddish sweatshirt. Which is part of why this contrast is going to be fun. So Rick, over to you, sir. What was your first car?
I have two answers, and I apologize for
I
giving you
have
two
two
answers.
answers.
It's
Can
too
I
late.
come
You
and
know,
answer
you already finished your
Mine's
answer.
really short.
I learned to drive on a car that I didn't own, but I want to mention it. I learned to drive on a 16-foot Ford Econoline conversion van that was popped up
Extended.
and extended, had a lift on it. My brother David, who's in a wheelchair, which is a topic that comes up in our show quite a bit, and the way that his being brother of David and David and the family has sort of colored our world is a theme that people can expect to hear lots of anecdotes and interesting things about. So I learned to drive on a massive vehicle, and at 16 went for my driver's test, and parallel parking was the last step. And I took the test in a Ford Tempo.
Wow.
And I did the parallel parking in one move. And the guy said, "How long have you been driving?" And I said, "Well, I got my permit 6 months ago, and I went to school." And he says, "Listen, I'm going to pass you. Just tell me how long you've been driving." And I go, "No, I just got my permit." He goes, "There's no way that you just started parallel parking." I said, oh, I learned to parallel park on a Ford Econoline conversion van. And he laughed as he signed the thing. And then my first car, though, was in the late 90s, and it was a white 1994 Ford Bronco.
Ooh, like OJ.
Al Cowlings, technically.
Ah, wow.
Not like, oh yes, it wasn't the V car, but the same make, same model. And
Same
because
year? Is that the same year of
it
OJ?
was the same year. And because it was only, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after, or 5 years or 6 years after the OJ crimes, they couldn't get rid of it. I think I got it for $8,500 off the lot.
And what
yeah.
color, Rick, was the van that you learned on?
Dark blue.
Ooh, that's
Like
not
a
bad
deep
for
dark
vans.
blue.
Vans are often white or some other terrible color. So
I'm just
dark
saying,
blue is not bad.
I was 16 years old and I had a conversion van, so it was pretty cool.
So you had probably two of the scariest first cars. Anyway, you had a creepy conversion van, and you had OJ's car.
Yes.
So okay, see, this is why this podcast is going to be so much fun for everybody.
One time I drove to a friend's place. We were going there for dinner in the van, and when they came outside to say hello, the guy said, "Oh, you brought the living room."
This thing was huge.
So I have a really quick. I learned at 16, my brother taught me how to drive a stick shift on a 1969 metallic brown saddle interior GTO.
Wow.
Ooh.
3-speed. Oh.
See, this is great. We're going on a wide. It's a cornucopia of vehicular options here. Okay, well, speaking of options, I'm going to ask you both a question I also ask of all of our guests. What is your drink of choice? Rick, maybe you can start this time and share what is your beverage. Usually we say adult beverage, but it's expanded beyond that here on Independent American. So what's your beverage of choice?
The answer would have been different before the pandemic. I have it under control, but I've been doing a lot more drinking in the last year. So I have and I've also bartended. So I've got a couple answers, but the short one is right now I've been into this drink that I believe it's called the Godfather, and it's bourbon or rye and a little bit of amaretto.
Ooh.
And it's nice.
That's it? Is there ice on it or anything else?
There's a little bit of ice. Yeah. Like ideally like 1 or 2 big rocks, like a good pour of whiskey or bourbon or rye. And then I put like a sort of like 1 to 4, like a little bit of amaretto just for sweet, especially after dinner, just a little PM John.
I love that. The Godfather. Okay. And Sharon, what is your beverage of choice, please?
I thought you might ask this question because I know how the show goes. It's not really exciting, but just some nice white wine or a Riesling, but never Chardonnay.
Never Chardonnay.
That's very interesting. I too prefer a Riesling, a sweeter wine. My wife always says she likes a buttery Chardonnay, is the way she always says it. And
that's her least favorite. My mom's.
That tastes like olive oil to me. It's just gross. Yeah.
She would throw it across the room and smash the glass.
So let me ask you all. The show is called Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast. We've been working together on this for some time. It's exciting for you, for us, I think for America, and for Righteous Media. This marks, our second new title, launching you guys, and what we hope will be the second of many more to come. Either of you, I'm going to be really careful and not suggest that one of you answers, because that's part of the fun here, is like throwing a jump ball between a mother and son and seeing how that lands. But why did you want to do this podcast, and what do you want folks to take away from it?
I'll start, and you can feel free to, of course, interrupt me.
I wouldn't interrupt you, but you should start because you really have the answer.
I appreciate that. It started as I just find you fascinating, and I think that your particular experiences, not just as my mom, but as a special needs educator, as an artist, as a person who got married at 20 in the late 60s, early 70s. There's a bunch of pieces, just objectively as I can be, that I find fascinating. And there were some specific stories around my brother that I was interested in knowing more detail on, because I'm 2 years younger than David. He's 2 years older. And so some of the developmental formative years that I have early memories from, I was curious what sort of your take on those things were. And as an experiment, asked if we started speaking about it. And it was just, I've produced some things before. I've made some things before. I was like, this is like really, I guess, again, not objectively, but this is objectively interesting. And so I asked if we could record it. And we started doing that very casually, with no real, time limits or syllabus, so to speak. We just sort of just jammed out and realized we had a show. And so we started to serialize it. And then you saw what we were doing, and we're extremely excited and grateful. And like the idea that it's like, hey, that you agreeing that it's interesting was exciting enough on its own. And so the idea is just to expand on those stories and meet some new people who maybe don't know them, and tell some ones that have not been told, and see where it goes. But the impetus was just, our conversations are, I don't know, people seem to like them.
I think it's so sincere, and it's heartwarming, and it's enlightening. And I think it's going to be just what folks need in times like this, because even though things are getting better in many parts of the country, we're probably still in for a rocky time, and we'll have to process much of that together. And you all have, the fortune and the challenge of being together as a mother and son. Sharon, what do you want folks to take away from this when they listen to this show and they are introduced to you and Rick? What do you hope that it'll leave them with?
For me, that when we started doing this, for me was the fun of doing it, the fun of sharing our space. We tend to understand each other, and when we don't, that's good too, because that's, that brings an interest and growth. But it's also, one of my philosophies is that everybody should contribute to their household and to their community, regardless of their level of ability. So when David was little, his job was to empty the silverware from the dishwasher. And then Rick would come in and say, he's spitting all over it. You had to rewash all of it. And I'd say, that's not the point. The point is that he's doing some work. Everybody has to work. Everybody should work. And I went on from there and found that I had some ideas that could help people. And that's my way of giving back to the community. And when things get quiet and I'm not involved in something and helping somebody, things get stale. I think it's much better to be involved. So the fact that we might have an audience who can garner something from our experiences, we have some guests lined up who are people who have a relative or who have, I say now, other needs. Maybe we're still allowed to say special needs. I'm not sure, the vernacular changes all the time, but it's really about being connected and giving back.
I think Sharon, it's such an important and powerful reminder right now for all of us as interconnected citizens more than ever before. And everything that we do at Righteous is built around, we talk about the 5 I's, right? Independence, integrity, information, inspiration, and impact. And when we first started talking about this show, I saw all of those threads. And also I saw, as a parent, as a child, as a citizen. I learned so much from you, especially Rick. I learned a lot from you too. But your mom is really such a person full of wisdom and experience, and I just feel better every time I hear the two of you. And I hope that other folks feel that way as well. There's also, I think, the best theme song I've heard in forever that I think I'm going to play. I think I played in the intro. I'm going to play in the outro. I'm going to do a more extensive bio before we get to this interview. But let me ask you, we're going to explore a lot of things on your show. It's going to drop on Wednesdays for now. Chris made a shortcut, at least for now, called everybodypod.us. So folks listening can go there or go to the Apple podcast store or anywhere you get podcasts and subscribe as soon as you get done listening to me. But we're also going to cover, some current events on this show. One of the big issues that you all, I think, explore at times, or I've explored in this show for sure, is cannabis. Cannabis is legal in New York. I was having a conversation with my in-laws in the driveway last week, and we were doing a toast, and I said, and to legalize cannabis in New York. And my mother-in-law looked at me and said, just what we need, more high people in this state, right? So there's going to be.
So she agrees with you.
So, well, she was being sarcastic, right? But I think that there are many intergenerational conversations happening right now that I hope you all can explore.
Yep.
So let's just use that as an example. Quick reaction, and maybe Sharon, I'm always going to give you the first shot because you have the experience. Did you think in your lifetime you would see legalized cannabis or marijuana in America? And what do you think about this moment?
I did, because as a kid in the 60s, I had heard that the major cigarette companies had already registered names for when cannabis became legal. So I grew up presuming that it would. I had concerns about it. The answer is way too long. It's based on some experience in other countries, not personal experience, historical experience. But I accept it, and I hear from friends and from people all over that it's very helpful to people who have medical needs. And as far as recreationally, people obviously have been participating, and a lot of our states have legalized it. So, and I actually haven't heard any reports about any of the harrowing things that we were warned of when we were kids. So I'm just neutral on it. It is what it is, and I think it's likely. And I don't want it to be trite, but as far as comparing it to alcohol, it's possible that it's a much smoother transition than alcohol. I think about going to a restaurant and people drinking and then driving home. So
Thank you, Sharon. Rick, over to you, sir. What do you think?
I will also try to be concise, and we'll likely devote a whole show of ours to this topic. I did hope and think it would occur in my lifetime. I always understood the political and mis and disinformation reasons that it wasn't legal, the reasons that it was a Schedule I drug, even down to the fact that the word marijuana has racist roots. It's cannabis, right? They were trying to otherize Mexicans during the time that cannabis became a thing. I've never seen someone smoke a joint and get into a bar fight, ever. And I believe I read yesterday, and I believe the number is opioid deaths increased by 50% last year. 50%. And then I saw when Colorado legalized it recreationally, what it did for their state budget. So I knew it was only a matter of time until other states didn't care about anything other than that thing that they care about. So I'm very excited. I also, there's elements of legal cannabis that are like a Willy Wonka fever dream to me. I mean, I had these visions as a teenager, a kid in college. We used to risk our lives for a $20 dime bag of the worst swag you could ever imagine. Now I walk into a store and it's regulated, and there's packages that look like major brands, and you have a discussion with a bud tender. And so you can tell I'm excited about it. I'm very excited for New York, and I'm specifically excited for New York because New York draconian laws have ruined countless lives. And for the amount of people who are sitting in Rikers Island uncharged because they got caught with a dime bag, for those people and the families that they're part of, their entire existence moving forward will be a different reality. And that's the part that excites me the most.
I'm so excited to get your take on so many things over the next couple of months and years. And for me, you know, I've kind of been digesting the news and processing the news and expecting the news. But there was one part of it that I kind of forgot about, which is when the news hit today, they said that marijuana arrest convictions will be expunged.
Yes.
And I kind of forgot that applied to me. And I was pretty open. I was pretty open about my my arrest on an episode I did with Wes Moore, where we talked about the criminalization of cannabis and a moment I had where I was arrested with a few other friends in New York. And, you know, at that moment, you know, I thought that was the end of my life.
That's
right?
it.
And
Yeah.
many folks did. And I was, you know, I talked about it at length in the show too. I was in a jail cell in the Tombs in New York with a lot of young black kids who were told, "Hey, just take the plea and walk out, and you
Take
can be
the
out
plea.
tonight." And I was in there saying, "Guys, this is going to be on the records forever. You know, if they didn't get you, don't take the plea. Like hang." But they're like, "Yeah, but it's Friday, and I want to be out." And you
That's
know,
right.
and I was caught up in that. I was younger, and now I hadn't fully processed, frankly, how important that's going to be. I think for an
Yes.
entire generation or generations of people that were caught up in the criminal justice system. So one of the many things we're going to unpack on your show. Let's talk about for one second, Rick, if we can. You're a very talented musician.
Thanks,
You're
man.
doing all the music. You're both talented artists. That's going to be a fun part of the show to explore. Rick, talk about, you know, why you think music is important to this show and what you want to do with that in this show.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, music, I'm a musician. It's always been a major part of my life and not always been my day job. So I have a couple of slumdog millionaire areas of expertise, but music, I joke, half joke that if I could have stopped making music, I would have done it a long time ago. It doesn't really fit into a lot of commerce things, and it's a substantial amount of my time, but it's who I am. So the theme song, I've written many, many, many songs. I've written some songs that have appeared in commercial environments. I've written countless songs that no one's ever heard. And this theme song is, I think, the best song I ever wrote so far. It's one of my favorites. It came out in 35 minutes. It took me another hour to produce, and I said, that's it. And so music will play a large role in both the, you know, creation of things like theme songs and outros, but also during pandemic, I've harnessed my frustration around being in a pandemic into music. And I've created an entire category of new songs under the moniker Aminal songs. And they're all 1 minute or less looping animal songs that are not so secretly about the pandemic. And so I'll be releasing those soon, and we will share one or some on not every show, but often on our show, I'll be sharing a new song with my mom, getting her, you know, first reactions, and then also sharing with the audience at that time. So things like Aminal songs and the theme song, and also, you know, if you say something that I think is funny, which happens often, I might go and sort of toil away and make a little stinger jingle bumper kind of thing that might appear in the show. So there will be that, and then musical show and tell. You can't see here, but this room is filled with my favorite instruments. And so there'll be some show and tell opportunities of things that you've seen and some things that you've never heard of, and some things you might say, why would an adult man ever buy that?
Well, we're gonna have lots of amazing audio. We're also gonna shoot for video. And as a tribute to you in this show, behind me, I'm at a friend's house this week for spring break, and as folks can see if you watch on video, behind me is an amazing picture of the Beatles in a swimming pool that Rick informed me he thinks was taken in California. Maybe it was the first visit the Beatles ever had to California. It might have been.
I think this was 65. I think this was in California. I think it's before they played the Oakland show. And I think it might have been after they met Frank Zappa earlier that week. I think.
See, we're bringing the information. And I also wore my Levon Helms Studios shirt because I am very happy, like I know you are, that live music venues are starting to open. The Levon Helms Studio in Woodstock is an amazing live music venue. And it's my way of trying to send some positive energy out there to so many of the creatives that have been working so hard and tirelessly and difficultly through this environment. But music's been a really key part of my show, of everything we do at Righteous. It's going to be a key part of your show. And let me ask you all a final question that I often ask of all our guests. We moved away from the angry, right? It's not enough to be angry. You have a right to be angry. There's lots to be angry about. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. I still think that is true, but we want to convert that into positive impact. And your show is going to be a big part of that and expanding this righteous media family and network. I want to ask the both of you, what makes you happy? Sharon, maybe we'll start with you. Sharon, what makes you happy?
Painting makes me happy. I paint abstract pieces. Painting makes me very happy. Exercise makes me happy. Movement and walking, that literally makes me happy. On another level, Rick is cooking wonderful vegan dinners every night. I don't cook at all. That makes me very happy. Speaking with people who I love. I have some people in my life, fortunately, who are what I refer to as they're good ones. And that just fills me up and has really helped over this last 4.5 years of challenges.
Thank you. Rick, what makes you happy, bud?
So cooking is a passion and something that I've always done a little bit, but in the last year or so I've gone really intensely into, and I'm pretty sure I could open up a plant-based restaurant if that was something I'd be interested in. And so cooking is exciting because it's like the creative musical process, but you get to eat it afterwards. And also it's like the love language. Like I'm sharing this nourishment with the people I love around me. And so they're like legitimately surviving off of it. And when I'm cooking, I can't really do much else because there's a sharp knife in my hand and there's fire. So it's a nice focused thing. And then the other obvious answer is music, when I'm in my studio and just creating something. And as long as the negative voices aren't too loud, there's moments where I'm like, this really does make me happy. And similar to your answer, connecting with people, talking to a friend. And I'm also enjoying speaking with people in the last, during this pandemic. I feel like the rules of friendship engagement are all in the air. So whether it's somebody, I joked a few months ago, you told me I shouldn't make this joke. I said, I've lost a lot of friends to the pandemic. I mean, they're alive. I just don't talk to them anymore. And so there's this thing where like you get to reevaluate who your people are, and then also reaching out or being reached out to by somebody you haven't spoken in a while, the sort of like presupposition of why and when, and that's all off the table. So I found myself feeling very centered and very happy just connecting with somebody, regardless of, how often we talk.
I think that's really, really powerful. And I feel the same way, Rick. I mean, when I deployed to Iraq, I lost a lot of friends, right? You kind of found out, it was a clarifying moment, like who's really down for you, who's not, who do you want around, who do you not? And I think on this show, we've explored the parallels between this pandemic and war. And if I extend that parallel to, recognizing that we have an opportunity to kind of reset a bit, but also recognizing that after war, whether it ends on July 4th or everybody's vaccinated at the end of the year, whatever happens, there's going to be a period of celebration where we kind of celebrate our VC day, our victory over the coronavirus day. And I think everyone will feel that joy, but then there'll also be a processing of the trauma.
Yes.
And a processing of the pain and those we've lost. And I'm really thankful that we will have your show to take us through that, because I think that your show will be a really fun, heartwarming, strengthening guide for folks throughout this next few months and beyond. And I think, Sharon, you said the good ones. You are two of the good ones. I am very grateful for your friendship, for your partnership. And the new show is called Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast. Everyone should subscribe right now. There'll be a link wherever you got this show, Independent Americans. You can also find it on the Apple Podcast Store. Subscribe now. The first episode will drop April 7th. It's a Wednesday. If you're listening to this after that, you can listen to it right now. Shows will come every Wednesday. Final thoughts, guys, from Rick and Sharon, the mighty hosts of Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast. For all the folks who said, what would it be like to have a podcast with your mother? Or what would it be like to have a podcast with your child? You're about to find out. Any final thoughts, guys?
Just gratitude and excitement. We have done this and it's quiet, and for us, and you're allowing it to be more of a megaphone thing. And so your impression of what we have to offer, is something we take very seriously in this. So there's a genuine excitement around this, and I should stop there, but I can't. I agree with what you just said. I think we're going to see almost like a Weimar Republic level of excitement, of dance, of drink, of it's going to be just like the Weimar Republic, only with more Nazis.
What? What is that? What does that mean?
It means we're going to enter the new Roaring 20s. And we did it last time. There were less Nazis.
I love that. Okay, so it's a good thing, right? Yeah, yes.
The Roaring 20s is good. The level of people who don't care
I think
for
that's
people
right.
like me is not good.
We've been saying root for the boom,
There
right?
you go.
There could be a boom coming, and maybe we'll be a part of it. And Sharon, you've seen a lot of things, you've done a lot of things, and I'm so excited to have you guiding us through this. I feel like, especially for folks that maybe are missing their mother or their parents, or maybe want to find new ways to connect with them. I think, you're going to kind of become everybody's mother, and that's a great thing, because I don't know you as well as I hope I will in the future, but you're one of the best moms I've seen.
Aww.
And I'm really excited about that. So what would you like us to think about with a final thought here?
Thank you, Paul. That's really flattering. And knowing who you are, I really appreciate that. Thank you. The only thing I would add is Rick and I did one season previously, and it was only audio. It was not video. And now we have a YouTube station, so you can also watch us.
So dancing, cooking, music making, lots of amazing shirts,
field trips.
Field trips, right? Field trips. And I just want to come back to it. We're going to talk about, you all are going to talk about what's happening in the world, but you're also going to give folks, a lot of the 5 I's. We say it: independence, information, inspiration, integrity, which I think is real, and impact. And it's coming at just the right time. We're going to build toward Mother's Day, which I expect you all to dominate. But Everybody and Their Mother Has a Podcast is the show. The great and powerful Rick Sorkin and Sharon Koppelman will be your hosts. Me and the team at Righteous Media are very proud to bring this to you on April 7th. Subscribe right now, join the family, spread the word, and I guess happy spring break, everybody.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. And of course, stay frosty and stay vigilant.
Amen.
2 of the most vigilant people I've seen yet.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.